Wait a minute. So now they're saying that the C19 vaccinations are actually making women bleed more in their menstrual cycles? Yeah, you can't make this stuff up, guys. Seriously. So what's the government doing about all this? And now they have this Kraken variant that they're talking about. Have you guys heard about this? They're calling it the Kraken variant, also the US variant. Its official name, XBB.1.5. No Greek letter assigned to it yet, but according to the WHO, it's the most transmissible version of the Omicron variant to date, even stronger than the one that's got around last year. You guys remember that one? Already, the WHO announced that countries should consider recommending masks for risky situations like flights. It's already the dominant strain in the United States, and some experts are worried that it may be doing a dodge immunity from past infections and possibly vaccines. Does this mean a comeback for lockdowns? How would you guys feel about another round of lockdowns? Hit me up in the comment section down below. Also, if you own a home, make sure your home is protected. Get your free home warranty quote. There's a link in the description down below of this video. Hey, guys, most especially the ladies in our YouTube fam. Have you noticed this? Since early in the pandemic, women have reported experiencing changes in their menstruation after they got the C19 or vaccinated against it. Their cycles got even longer. Some said that their bleeding was heavier. Research has backed up these anecdotal reports, and it's now showing that C19 vaccinations having a temporary but pretty noticeable impact on women's periods and their accompanying symptoms. Here's what we know. They did a lot of studies, and it's true. Getting vaccinated appears to have temporarily led to longer cycles by up to a day immediately after women get vaccinated. It says here, a study of almost 4,000 women in the United States found that menstrual cycle lengths were extended by about 0.7 days after a first dose and 0.9 days after a second dose. They found the same thing in a study of nearly 20,000 women in the United Kingdom and then in Japan. Before women were vaccinated, the average difference was about 1.9 days. After 2 doses of a vaccine, it could be as high as 2.5 days. And they actually saw the change as more pronounced in people who received 2 vaccine doses within the same cycle, with that group seeing an average difference of 3.9 days. Vaccinated women may also see other period-related symptoms more often. Analyzing data from nearly 5,000 women in 6 Arab countries, they found that vaccinated individuals had more frequent back pain, nausea, tiredness, pelvic pain, unprescribed analgesics use, and passage of loose stool in connection with their menstruation compared to unvaccinated individuals. Vaccinated people also reported heavier flow and more days of bleeding according to the paper. But let me know if it's the same for the ladies that are watching this show right now. What's scary is how these changes to menstrual cycle length may be happening because of how the immune system might affect sex hormones. Inflammatory responses to the C19 vaccine may also affect the ovaries and uterus. So reproduction and people's body parts could be affected. Could this affect people's chances of getting pregnant? Or worse, raise the risk of abnormal growths in her body? All around the world, it looks like they're ignoring this kind of serious data, and mainstream media just seems to be glossing all over the right information. No wonder Americans are just appalled and feels like no one's worthy of trust. I mean, seriously, guys, we need to get this information out there. Spread the word to your friends and your loved ones, especially the women in our circle. Let's make sure everybody knows about that. Hit the share button right there, guys. Now, another thing worth noting, the new Kraken C19 variant that they're calling the US variant. Yep, we finally bred our own nasty infectious variant of the C19, guys. But check out the details right here.
XBB 1.5, that is the new variant first found in the US, and it is also nicknamed the US variant for that reason. Some details about it that we know right now is that it is highly transmissible, the most transmissible to date. We're not sure about the severity of it just yet for a multitude of reasons. Number one, because of the number of individuals that have either had COVID or are immunized by vaccines. But we do know that it is causing some hospitalizations. We're seeing that increase, especially in the most vulnerable populations, the elderly and the immunocompromised. So, quick tip, make sure you wear masks and definitely get some level of vaccination. And that's really what experts are focusing on right now. There's a lot that we still need to learn about this variant, but it is the one that, as you said, Brian, it is now accounting for 40% of the population. So something to really watch out for.
Since Omicron became the world's dominant C19 variant, it's taken on a lot of shapes. So first there was the BA.1, then there's the BA.5, and eventually others, including BQ.1 and BQ.1.1. Now all eyes are on another scrambled string of letters and numbers. It's the XBB.1.5, also known as the Kraken, which has swept the northeastern US in recent weeks. Have you heard about this already? The WHO classifies the US Kraken variant as the most transmissible version of the Omicron variant to date and has announced that other countries should consider recommending masks for risky situations like flights. It's already the dominant strain here in the United States. And some experts are worried that it may be able to dodge immunity from past infections and possibly vaccines. This could very well mean more illness, more hospitalizations, more death, which of course can strain healthcare systems and increase rates of long C19. People's lives and livelihoods could very well be on the line here, especially for the folks on fixed income like Social Security and SNAP benefits. They're the ones who have to go outside all the time to buy food and other necessities with a limited income. This puts them in more danger than most. And I remember reading that we're still not at the stage where C19 is at a predictable level, a predictable, stable level, where, like, for example, the seasonal flu. But what's our government doing? It's also spreading faster because of how people are behaving. Reports are saying that few are wearing masks compared to 2020, and many have traveled and gathered indoors to celebrate the holiday season. Now, of course, this is a combination and a recipe for a lot of people getting sick fast. It's also spread to 38 countries according to the WHO. Those include South Korea, Australia, and nations in Europe. Experts are also worried about how China's first massive outbreak after 3 years of strict containment measures would interact with the new one. A hyper-contagious variant could affect the population differently. And experts, they don't yet know if an uncontrolled spread of XBB.1.5 in China could possibly spur the emergence of a super variant or one that's especially dangerous or transmissible. Now, another thing that we should watch out for is what the government and mainstream media are saying about this. Now, it says here that CNN and even the Washington Post are claiming that the number of pandemic deaths have been overcounted and that many people died while sick with the virus, not of it. Big difference there, guys. I got an email from one of you guys. Here's what they told me. My father was one of those who got C19, but on his death certificate, even though he died 100% of esophageal cancer and didn't even have C19, his PCR test came back as positive. He had C19 earlier that year and didn't die even though he had stage 4 cancer. But he continued to PCR test positive even though he had no symptoms at all. We even had an autopsy that showed no presence of C19 and said he 100% died of cancer. But the hospital got an extra $13,000, possibly more, for putting that on his certificate. So why wouldn't they? Plus, they claimed that they had to put it on there according to CDC government regulations. I don't think that this is the only time that this has happened, and finally we have someone confessing the truth. CNN medical analyst and Washington Post columnist Dr. Lena Wen has admitted that the medical community is overcounting the number of C19 deaths and hospitalizations. In an opinion piece entitled, quote, "We are overcounting C19 deaths and hospitalization. That's a problem." Wen cites sources that claim that most patients diagnosed with C19 are actually in the hospital for some other illness. Here's what she says, quote, "According to the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, the United States is experiencing around 400 C19 deaths every day. At that rate, there will be nearly 150,000 deaths a year. But are these Americans dying from C19 or with C19, end quote. Plus, she goes on to say, quote, "Determining how likely it is an infection will result in hospitalization or deaths helps people weigh their own risk," end quote. But here's another story that I got from you guys. This happened to a family member. She had an accident, an ambulance was called, the EMTs gave her a PCR test, said she was positive, and threw her into a C19 ward for 2 weeks where they kept her in bed all the time and ruined her health and finances, and the hospital kept her bedridden for 3 months. She's never been the same and is still recovering. She was asymptomatic. WTF. If this isn't about overinflating the numbers of C19 cases, what is? As for Wen, the person made the confession. 2 other infectious disease experts backed her up in saying that the number of deaths attributed to C19 is greater than the actual number of people dying from the virus itself. One example, in one hospital, 90% of patients diagnosed with C19 are actually in the hospital for some other illnesses. The doctor said this contributes to imprecise reporting of C19 deaths and hospitalizations. They pointed out how, quote, "Since every hospitalized patient gets tested for C19, many are incidentally positive. If these patients die, C19 may get added to their death certificate along with other doses. But the C19 was not the primary contributor to their death and often played no role in it at all," end quote. Now, another infectious disease physician found that in recent months, only about 30% of total hospitalizations with C19 were primarily attributed to the virus in Massachusetts hospitals. Now, experts are piling on one after another. California-based epidemiologist Dr. Tracy Hogan tweeted, quote, "Spring 2021, USA had good evidence. More than 40% of child C19 admissions were incidental. 2021 announced they distinguish with versus from C19 hospital. C19 plus deaths in Denmark in 2022 were 60 to 70% incidental. Amazing how long it's taken the United States to accept this is a problem," end quote. J. Michael Waller, an analyst with the far-right DC-based think tank Center for Security Policy, said, quote, "Not long ago, the Washington Post was calling us conspiracy theorists for saying such things," end quote. Now, this really begs the question among the reported almost, 1.1 million C19 deaths in the United States since the start of the pandemic and 6.7 million globally, how many people really died from this virus? What do you guys think? Definitely something to watch out for in the next one. More on that in our next updates, guys. I really hope that you caught all the information in today's daily news report. C19s affecting women's menstrual cycles, the US Kraken variant, and for our finale, how mainstream media and even the government has been over-reporting C19 deaths. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And hey, thanks for always dropping a like for the video. Always helps out big time with the channel. Updates are really ramping up by the day. Do not miss out on the next one. Y'all be safe.